All right, welcome back to Live Impact News here. We told you we had a guest coming up soon on the program. Our guest actually got here a little bit early, so we are going to go ahead and welcome on Tim Bryant, a Virginia Cooperative Extension agent. He's going to be talking about a new invasive species here. I'll give a small amount of background before we start. This is the two-spot cotton leafhopper that we're talking about. It's a long green insect that can be harmful to plants. Well, long's an overstatement. It's about 2 to 3 millimeters in size. It can be harmful to plants and various different resources that maybe play a small role in our everyday lives. It hasn't been found in Virginia yet, but it is present in North Carolina, including counties bordering Virginia, Brunswick, Greensville, Southampton. So it is something that we are all keeping an eye on, especially Tim Bryant and his line of work. Tim, I appreciate you coming on. My name is Connor. We haven't gotten to meet yet. It's wonderful that you're spending some time with us. I hope your Tuesday's going all right.
It's going well. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And, we talk about this two-spot cotton leafhopper. What can you tell us about this species that we know so far?
Sure. So this is a new insect that we're dealing with. It showed up in Puerto Rico in 2023, and then it showed up in mainland United States in southern Florida in late 2024. And by the end of 2025, it had spread to the extent that you're talking about northward to the Virginia-North Carolina line, and then westward all the way into Texas. So it feeds on a lot of different plant hosts. The main thing that I'm concerned about in my position is it feeding on cotton, as the name suggests, but it does feed on a lot of different specialty crops, okra and eggplant being a couple of the major ones, as well as ornamental plants like hibiscus.
And you say this is a new insect that we first found in Puerto Rico in 2023. How does a new insect come about? We're so advanced in the way we study these things now. Is this just something that we had never discovered before, or is it generally or genuinely a new species that has formed in the last, 3, 4 years?
So I should clarify, it's new to us. So it was a well-described insect in its native range, which is Southeast Asia. They grow a lot of cotton in north west India and in the surrounding areas. And it's been a major pest in that production region for a long time. And invasive insects get spread mostly through global trade. We don't know exactly how it arrived in our side of the world, but it got moved somehow from its native range.
And being that it's something that's been present in Southeast Asia for some time, how does that help in now trying to contain and mitigate the spread of the leafhopper?
Sure. So they've done a lot of research over a number of years to figure out how to best manage this pest. But their growing conditions are quite different than ours. One of the major things we don't quite know in North America is how well this insect will survive the winter. It's active all year in its native range, but it obviously gets a lot colder here in Virginia and North Carolina than it does in Southeast Asia. So we don't know how well it would have survived the winter, if there will be overwintering populations that'll start to appear in our area, or if they'll have to spread for more southern areas in Florida and Alabama and Southeast Georgia each year.
Okay, interesting. So it's entirely possible that November, December, January will hit and the leafhopper population, at least in North Carolina and Virginia, will be completely wiped out, and this will not be a concern. Now, if that happens, does that mean it's not a concern, or does that mean that next summer we have to be on the lookout once again, or even, in the spring?
Yeah, so anytime we have an insect like this, and there are countless examples of things that are both native and invasive that have to spread from more southern areas each year to get to us. We have examples like the fall armyworm, which is something that's active all year in the Caribbean and gets pushed northward each year. So it's something that we have to be actively and aggressively monitoring for every year to make sure that it's not going to show up earlier or become more of an issue when we might not expect it. So even if we don't see it being a major issue this year, it's something that, could be different next year depending on weather patterns, how cold the winter is, all types of different variables like that.
And you said that you're especially concerned about its impacts on cotton. How does the leafhopper harm cotton?
So leafhoppers have what we call piercing sucking mouth parts. So basically, their mouth is like a little straw. They insert that into the plant and inject their saliva, which has toxic compounds on it. And basically, what that does is cause what we call hopper burn. So the exterior margin of the leaf of the affected plant will start to turn a little bit yellow, and that kind of progresses to more dark reddening to essentially just that leaf dying, senescing, and falling off the plant. And plants use those leaves and use photosynthesis to produce energy. So when they're losing leaf tissue, they're losing energy that they could be using to put into the harvestable portion of that plant, which in our case is cotton. For ornamental plants, it might be, that it's just more unsightly in landscape conditions. For specialty crops like vegetables, again, losing that leaf tissue is a problem ultimately for fruit production.
And now, when you started talking about the long straw mechanism, I thought you were going to say they use that to eat the plant. But then you said that they inject saliva. What benefit does the leafhopper receive from just kind of destroying this leaf?
So they use that saliva to kind of break down those cells of the plant, and then they suck that back up. So they are eating juices from the plant, but it's actually what's in their saliva that's really causing the damage to the plant rather than just directly from their feeding.
Okay, very good to know. And then, so then we have obviously everything that you just described will impact humans in a domino effect kind of way. Can the leafhopper, the two-spot cotton leafhopper, can it harm humans directly?
No, the only impact that it would have on us would be on the economic well-being of those producing the crops or the plants that it might affect. It does not, it doesn't bite humans. It doesn't affect us in any way directly.
And as you said, nonetheless, it could have economic impact down the line. So, what can people do to kind of help with this initiative to contain that spread?
Sure. So at this stage, as you mentioned previously, we have not identified it in Virginia, although it was very close at the end of last year. So what we're recommending at this stage is just to be aggressively monitoring. We have distributed some packets of okra seed to some of our growers and homeowners around the area to use that as kind of a sentinel monitoring plot. That's a preferred host for the insect. So if it does show up, it's likely to be on a crop like okra. So the one benefit is, somebody got a little bit of free seed, they can have some okra in their backyard and enjoy the fruits of that labor, but it also kind of serves as a potential place to find the insect if it does show up. Being so small, it's likely that, the untrained eye would see the injury to the plant before you would see the insect itself. So we're asking that people would monitor for that if they see any yellowing around the edges of leaves of host plants like okra, eggplant, cotton, or hibiscus, that they go and take a look at those plants on the undersides of the leaves to see if they can find the insect, and then contact either us directly or contact your local Virginia Cooperative Extension agent so we can get a positive ID if there is an insect to be seen.
Okay, and do you guys have two-spotted cotton leafhoppers at your facility now? Are you studying the actual insect itself?
No, we're not. So I'm part of a working group of entomologists throughout the Southeast US at different land grant universities. And in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Alabama this past year, they were dealing with populations in the fields. So they had the opportunity to work with it and think about how we're going to manage it, how we're going to sample all these kinds of things. So I've gotten a lot of good information from those folks to share with our stakeholders and what to be on the lookout for. But given that it's a federally regulated pest, we're not able to move it from the areas where it was found last year into Virginia to do any kind of research with it, because then you're risking spreading it beyond where it spread on its own.
Okay. And then we talked about the spread of the leafhopper and how it typically will happen. Does the migration of the insect or the spread of the insect, does it tell us anything else about the climate, changes in the climate, changes in our environmental systems and ecosystems? I mean, is there other than just trying to study the insect itself, contain the insect itself, does this new development tell us anything about the wider picture?
No, I mean, we've had invasive insects that have showed up over the years in various different places. This one in particular may be more susceptible to the cold, like we've discussed. And there is a shift over the years in where insects are able to overwinter due to it being a little bit warmer. But it doesn't necessarily indicate any great shift in the suitability of our area for this insect. It's just so happens that it got moved here via some mechanism and spread via normal mechanisms.
All right, very good. Is there anything else that we need to know about the two-spot cotton leafhopper and the spread of this invasive species?
Just like to reiterate again to be on the lookout for it. If you have any of the plants that we've mentioned, okra, eggplant, cotton, or hibiscus being the main four that are really preferred hosts, just kind of keep an eye on it over the course of this summer and into the fall. And if you see anything that looks suspicious in any way, don't hesitate to contact your local cooperative extension agent or contact me directly so we can come and have a look at it and get on top of it quickly. So if we, identify it quickly and we're aggressive about managing it, we can get on top of it and hopefully it won't be a significant issue for this part of the world.
In terms of contacting you specifically, what's the best way to do that? Email, phone, website? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. So I'm located here at the Tidewater AREC in Suffolk, Virginia. If you Google my name, Tim Bryant, or the Tidewater AREC, it's pretty easy to navigate to find me. And you can find my email address and phone number there. And then if you're somewhere else and you have a relationship with your local cooperative extension agent, or you don't and you would prefer to communicate with somebody more local, you can find them pretty easily online as well. And all of those folks are very happy to field questions from the public.
Okay, great. I didn't realize how close by you were. We worked through Virginia Tech to set this up. I didn't realize you were right down the road in Suffolk. We could have had you here in studio. Maybe we'll get the chance a little later on if a new invasive species comes about or if this problem kind of has more developments and solutions. But for the time being, Tim, we really appreciate you joining us.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so keep your eyes peeled. If you have any of those crops that Tim was talking about, this is an area where you could genuinely help with this problem. So make sure that you spend a little bit of extra time looking out for those warning signs. Get in touch with a cooperative agent in order to solve this problem. If you do know anything, a cooperative extension agent to be exact. Tim Bryant joining us today on a little bit different of a story than we'll typically do, but one that was unique and interesting in its own way. Now,